Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruel thing my wife did was hand me a demand like I was disposable, share me or I'm gone. Then she laughed with her sister on speakerphone while I stood there, stunned, in the home I built for us. Here's how it happened. My name is Edward Vaughn, and I'm a black man living in Frisco, Texas, where everything looks polished on the outside. New houses, clean sidewalks, curated lives, but people can still be ruthless behind closed doors. I used to believe marriage was a shelter. Not perfect, not glamorous, but steady. The kind of steady you can lean on when life gets loud. I work in operations for a regional distribution company in Plano, the kind of job that teaches you to solve problems before they become fires. I'm the guy who notices the missing details, the late shipment, the quiet mistake that turns into a loss if nobody catches it. I thought that skill made me a good husband. It made me consistent. It made me dependable. I didn't realize it also made it easy to exploit. I met Zelani Voss at a friend's housewarming in Dallas. She had that bright, controlled confidence that pulled attention without asking for it. She spoke like someone who had already decided what she deserved, and the world was just catching up. She laughed at my dry jokes, leaned in close like my words mattered, and asked questions that made me feel seen. I hadn't felt seen in a long time. When she touched my arm, it felt like a promise. When she said she wanted a life with peace, I believed her. We moved fast, but didn't feel reckless at the time. Zelani talked about partnership like it was a business, shared goals, shared vision, shared growth. She said she admired my discipline. I told her I admired her ambition. She worked in marketing and always talked about branding, even in normal conversations. She could turn a rough day into a story that made her sound like the hero who overcame it. I didn't question it. I thought it was resilience. I thought it was confidence. I didn't realize it was practice. We got married in Irving, a small ceremony, mostly family. Her parents, Dexton and Marley Voss, were warm enough to my face and colder the moment I wasn't in the room. Dexton had the kind of stare that made you feel like you're being measured. Marley smiled like she was polite by obligation. Zelani's sister Brenya liked to talk over people, laugh too loud, and call it having personality. I told myself every family had its quirks. I told myself love was bigger than that. The first year was smooth in the way new marriages can be smooth. Two people trying, two people pretending their differences are cute instead of important. Zelani loved nice things and knew how to describe them as investments. She loved being admired. She also loved being soothed. If her day went badly, she expected the world to soften for her. I'd cook, clean, plan weekends, handle bills, remind her of appointments, fix the small things before they became big things. She praised me for being steady, but she treated that steadiness like a resource she could pull from endlessly. When we bought our house in Frisco, it felt like the start of something permanent. We signed the papers, took the pictures, stood in the empty living room with our shoes off, imagining furniture and holidays and quiet mornings. Zelani posted a photo of the keys with a caption about manifestation. I posted nothing. I just felt grateful. I thought the work was worth it. I didn't know she was collecting milestones like trophies, not building a life like a foundation. The shift didn't happen all at once. It happened in small edits to our marriage that I didn't notice until the original version was gone. She started keeping her phone face down. She started going out with friends, but couldn't name which friends. She started dressing like she was always being watched, even when it was just us in the house. When I asked questions, she accused me of policing her. If I stayed quiet, she accused me of withdrawing. Either way, I was wrong. Either way, she stayed in control. The first time I felt real fear, it wasn't about cheating. It was about how easily she could switch off warmth. We'd be laughing, then I'd mention a bill or a schedule conflict, and her face would go blank. She'd speak slow, like I was stupid. "Edric, you worry too much. Edric, you make everything heavy." She'd act like my concern was a flaw in my character, not a response to her behavior. I started second-guessing myself. I started replaying conversations in my head. I started trying to fix problems I couldn't name. She introduced me to a man named Kavion Ricks at a charity mixer in Las Colinas. He was clean-cut, expensive cologne, bright smile, handshake that lingered a second too long. Zelani lit up around him in a way I hadn't seen in months. She called him a friend in real estate and said he helped her understand investing. Kavion looked at me like I was furniture that came with the house. He complimented Zelani repeatedly, but his compliments weren't about her mind or her work. They were about how she looked, how she moved, how she carried herself. On the drive home, I said, carefully, that Kavion seemed comfortable with her. Zelani laughed and told me not to be insecure. That word, insecure, became her favorite weapon. If I questioned a late night, I was insecure. If I asked why she deleted messages, I was insecure. If I said I didn't like another man texting her at midnight, I was insecure. My boundaries became weaknesses in her mouth. And little by little, I learned that speaking up only gave her more angles to attack me from. The next month, she started staying out later. She'd say she was networking. She'd say it was business. She'd say I didn't understand because I worked in a warehouse world. That one stung because she knew I work hard, knew I carried a whole operation on my back, knew my job wasn't glamorous, but it was real. She said it was like my work made me less. Like money only mattered if it came with a certain lifestyle. I didn't fight back. I told myself I didn't need to compete. I told myself love wasn't a contest. Then she started rewriting our intimacy as a bargaining chip. If I wanted closeness, she acted like it was a favor. If I wanted time, she acted like it was a demand. If I wanted clarity, she acted like it was in control. She'd kiss me quickly and keep moving like checking a box. She'd fall asleep with her phone in her hand and her body angled away from me. I'd stare at the ceiling and feel my chest tighten with a quiet dread I didn't have words for yet. One Friday night, I came home early from work and heard her laughing upstairs, bright, sharp laughter that didn't sound like it belonged to me. When I walked into our bedroom, she jumped like she'd been caught doing something she couldn't explain. She said she was on a call with Brynja. I looked at the screen and saw a name I didn't recognize. She snatched the phone away so fast it felt like a confession. Then she snapped at me, "Why are you hovering?" Like my presence in my own room was a problem. I tried to talk the next morning. I told her I felt a slipping. I told her I missed her. I told her I wanted to reset, counseling, date nights, something real. Zelani listened like a manager, hearing a complaint she already planned to deny. Then she said, calmly and practiced, "I'm not going to be trapped in your idea of marriage." I asked what that meant. She stared at me, unblinking, and said, "It means you either evolve or you get left behind." The ultimatum came a week later. It was a Tuesday, ordinary in every way that makes betrayal feel unreal. I was tired, still in work clothes, thinking about dinner and bills. Zelani stood by the kitchen island like she'd rehearsed her posture. She didn't ease into it. She didn't prepare me. She just said it cleanly, "Share me or I'm gone." Then she looked at my face like she was waiting for the reaction she wanted. I asked quietly, "Share you how?" Even asking felt humiliating, like I was negotiating my own dignity. Zelani shrugged. "Open, flexible, modern. You do your thing, I do mine. You stop acting like you own me." I told her marriage wasn't ownership. Marriage was an agreement. And this wasn't what we agreed to. She leaned forward and said, "Agreements can change. Like vows were a subscription plan. Like commitment was optional if your feelings shifted." When I didn't beg, she reached for cruelty. She called Brynja and put her on speaker. "Tell him," Zelani said, smiling. Brynja laughed and said, "Edric will fold. He's the dependable type. He'll hate it, but he'll accept it because he's scared to be alone." They said it like I wasn't there, like I was a predictable machine. I felt heat rush to my ears and a hollow space open in my chest. Not just betrayal, disrespect. The kind that makes you realize you've been living with someone who doesn't see you as a person. I asked one question, steady, because I needed something clear to hold on to. "So, this is final?" Zelani nodded. "Yes. No sadness. No regret. No softness. Just certainty. Like she'd already grieved me and moved on while I was still washing dishes and paying mortgages. That night she slept in the guest room and texted me from across the hall like we were strangers. "Don't be dramatic. You're making this bigger than it is. If you loved me, you'd let me be free." By morning, she packed a suitcase and moved into a furnished rental in Addison. She didn't cry when she left. She didn't apologize. She didn't even say goodbye. She said, "You'll come around." It wasn't a prediction. It was a command. The moment the door shut, the house felt too quiet. I walked from room to room like a ghost, touching furniture, staring at walls, trying to understand how my life could change so fast without any warning. My hand shook when I poured coffee. My stomach turned every time my phone buzzed. The suffering didn't stay private. Zaylani made sure of that. Within days, her parents stopped answering my calls. Dexton texted once. "Give her space. Stop being controlling." Marley sent a message full of polite insults about me not respecting her autonomy. Brynja posted vague stories online about men who want to cage women. Mutual friends got quieter. People I'd helped move, people I'd covered for, people I'd treated like family suddenly treated me like an accusation. Zaylani didn't just leave me. She tried to make sure I stood alone in the wreckage. I went to work and struggled to focus. I'd stare at the same spreadsheet for 10 minutes and realize I hadn't processed a single number. I'd walk through the warehouse and feel like everyone could see the humiliation on me. At lunch, I'd sit in my car and breathe through waves of nausea. Nights were worse. I'd come home to a house that still smelled like her perfume in the hallway and feel my throat tighten. I'd scroll through old photos like an idiot, looking for the moment she stopped loving me and started using me. She kept texting, "Never remorse, always pressure. We can be happy if you stop fighting. You're being selfish. You're holding me back." She sent me a picture of a wine glass on a balcony with the caption "Peace." Another day, she texted, "Kavion says you're going to regret being stubborn." That name again like a needle, like she wanted me to picture them together and feel small. I didn't respond the way she wanted. I didn't rage. I didn't plead. I didn't write paragraphs. I kept my replies short or silent. Every time I stayed calm, she got meaner. I tried counseling alone first, just to keep myself from breaking. The counselor asked me what I wanted. I said I wanted my marriage back. Then I paused and realized I didn't want this marriage. I wanted the version I thought I had. The counselor asked me what I feared. I said I feared being the man who got played and didn't see it coming. I feared losing my dignity. I feared becoming bitter. I feared that if I stayed soft, people like Zaylani would keep talking until I had nothing left. The moment everything shifted in me was small and quiet. It happened when I opened our joint account and saw the pattern clearly for the first time. Transfers, charges, ride shares at odd hours, hotel deposits that didn't match any business story, a charge at an upscale restaurant in Las Colinas on a night she claimed she stayed in with. Brynja. I stared at the screen and felt something cold settle into my spine. It wasn't rage. It was clear. I wasn't dealing with confusion. I was dealing with a plan. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because confronting her would only teach her how to hide better. I went into my work mode. The mode where emotions don't drive decisions, they inform risk. I downloaded statements. I organized dates. I made notes. I took screenshots. I didn't do anything illegal. I didn't hack anything. I simply collected what was already mine to see. Then I booked a consultation with a family attorney in Plano and walked in with a folder thick enough to make the receptionist raise her eyebrows. The attorney didn't flinch. She asked me one question. "What do you want her life to look like in a year?" I swallowed and said, "Quiet, stable, mine." She nodded like she'd heard that sentence from 100 men who finally got tired of being tested. She explained my options in plain language. She explained what mattered and what didn't. She explained that cruelty often comes dressed as freedom, but the court system doesn't care about slogans. It cares about facts, dates, documents, money trails, intent. When I walked out, the sun fell harsh. I sat in my car, hands on the steering wheel, and realized I was done asking for kindness from someone who enjoyed hurting me. That was the day I stopped thinking like a husband trying to repair something and started thinking like a man protecting what was left of him. I rerouted my paycheck to an account only I controlled. I kept paying what I was legally responsible for. I stopped paying the extra things I'd always covered to keep peace. I didn't announce it. I just removed the safety net. Zaylani didn't notice immediately because she assumed I'd always fix things. She was used to my quiet rescues, me covering overdrafts, smoothing late fees, absorbing shocks so she never felt consequences. For a few weeks, she kept spinning like the old system still existed. Her messages got cockier. This is easier without you nagging. I should have done this sooner. She sent me a selfie with the caption, glowing. I stared at it and felt my stomach flip, not because I missed her, but because I finally saw the emptiness behind her confidence. Then her spinning met a wall. Her card declined at a restaurant. She texted me immediately, furious, like I'd violated a rule. Fix the account. No greeting. No apology. Just a command. I didn't respond. She sent another message. Stop playing games. You're embarrassing me. I still didn't respond. When she realized silence wasn't making me fold, she switched tactics. So you're really going to ruin my life because you can't handle sharing? There was again my boundary framed as my failure. She started calling, leaving voicemails that dripped with contempt. You think you're so righteous. You're going to end up alone. Kavion says men, like you always regret it. She said his name like it gave her power. I saved everything. I didn't listen to the voicemails more than once because I refused to let her poison me repeatedly, but I kept the records. My attorney had told me something simple. Let her keep talking. People who do not feel remorse love to write their own story. Sometimes they write it in a way that helps you. The loneliness was still brutal. Planning didn't erase pain. Some nights I'd sit on the edge of the bed and feel the grief come in waves. I'd remember the early days, her laughter, her promises, her hand in mine, and it would feel like I was grieving someone who never existed. I missed companionship. I missed my routine. I missed feeling chosen. But every time I felt myself slipping toward nostalgia, I'd remember Brynja's laughter on speakerphone. I'd remember Zelani's smile when I looked hurt, and my spine would straighten again. Zelani escalated her smear campaign when she realized money wasn't bending me. She told people I was financially abusive. She told her parents I was starving her out. She told friends I was punishing her for being honest. Dexton called me and said, a real man wouldn't try to control a woman with money. I wanted to scream. I wanted to list every bill I'd paid, every sacrifice I'd made, every time I prioritized their daughter's comfort over my own. Instead, I said calmly, I'm handling things legally. He hung up like that sentence offended him. At work, stress bled into my performance. A supervisor pulled me aside and asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was just tired. I didn't want pity. I didn't want gossip. I wanted control over something in my life. I started going to the gym early in the morning, not to punish my body, but to burn off adrenaline. I started meal prepping again, organizing my days, building structure. When your life is being sabotaged emotionally, structure is a lifeline. It's proof that you still exist. It's proof you can still lead yourself. Meanwhile, Zelani kept chasing the life she thought she deserved. She and Kavion began shopping for a condo in Las Colinas like they were already a permanent team. She started posting vague captions about choosing herself and not settling. Kavion posted motivational quotes about high-value living. I watched from a distance and felt something close to disgust. Not because she was moving on, because she was trying to build her new life out of the remains of mine, and she still wanted me to fund it. Then a quiet crack formed in their fantasy. It started with a phone call she didn't want to make. Zelani called me late one afternoon, voice tight. Did you freeze anything? She demanded. I said, evenly, I changed my deposit. I'm handling the separation through attorneys. She hissed, you can't do that. I said, I already did. Silence. Then she said, colder, you're going to pay for this. Still no remorse. Still no apology. Just threats, like she believed consequences were something only other people faced. The next day, she texted something my attorney later called a gift. You're going to fund this whether you like it or not. She followed it with, I'm not going back to being owned. I forwarded it, then stared at my kitchen counter for a long time. It's a strange feeling when you realize the person who hurt you is also careless enough to document their own intent. It doesn't erase your pain, but it changes your posture. It tells you that you're not crazy. You're not exaggerating. The disrespect is real, and it's recorded. Weeks passed, and the pressure built on her side. Her furnished rental in Addison wasn't cheap. Kavion liked nice places, nice dinners, nice optics. But optics do not pay rent. Zaylani began calling more frequently. Sometimes sweet, sometimes vicious, never sincere. One day, she said, "We can reset if you stop being stubborn." The next day, she said, "You were never enough for me." She swung between bait and blade. I stopped taking calls. I let everything go through email or attorneys. The karma hit on a normal weekday morning, the kind of morning where you don't expect your life to shift. My attorney called me and said, they tried to move fast. I asked who. She said Zaylani and Kavion. She explained that their condo purchase had triggered routine financial verification. Transfers were questioned. Funding sources were examined. Timelines didn't align with their story. When people mix messy money with big purchases, the system asks questions. And when the questions do not have clean answers, deals stop. Their deal didn't just slow, it collapsed. Deposit issues, verification issues, delays that turned into denial. Kavion's confidence didn't fix it. Zaylani's charm didn't fix it. The lender didn't care about their vibe. It cared about consistency, and their paperwork didn't have it. The moment that deal died, the real relationship revealed itself. Because when you build love on fantasy and convenience, the first real inconvenience exposes the truth. Kavion didn't comfort her. He started distancing. Shorter replies. Missed calls. I'm busy. Zaylani tried to push him harder, and he snapped. She didn't tell me the details directly, but I heard it through a mutual friend who still had enough integrity to check on me privately. Kavion blamed Zaylani for drama. Zaylani blamed Kavion for not being a man. Neither of them had remorse. They were just two selfish people fighting over who would carry the weight when the fun stopped. And the moment Zaylani looked less like a prize and more like a responsibility, Kavion began slipping away like a man backing out of a bad deal. That same week, Zaylani's lifestyle started collapsing in smaller, uglier ways. Late fees, missed payments, pressure from the rental company. Her phone calls to me became frantic, not apologetic, frantic. Just help me this one time. You don't want me to lose everything, do you? She said it like my boundaries were cruel, like her consequences were my job. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I said, talk to your attorney. That sentence made her furious because it meant I was no longer reachable emotionally. Then came the quiet, devastating moment she couldn't spin. The car. The car had been a status symbol she loved. Pictures, captions, the polished image of a woman winning. But the car was tied to accounts and responsibilities she no longer had access to the way she assumed. One morning, while she was inside her rental, it was recovered. No dramatic shouting. No public spectacle. Just an empty parking spot when she walked out, phone in her hand, breath caught, realizing the world doesn't negotiate with arrogance. She called me screaming. Not crying. Not apologizing. Screaming like I had stolen something from her. She said, "You're ruining me on purpose." I listened long enough to confirm what I already knew. She still felt entitled to me. She still felt entitled to my stability. I said, calmly, "I'm not responsible for your choices." She spat. "You're a bitter man." I said, "I'm a responsible man." Then I ended the call. My hands were shaking afterward, but the shaking wasn't weak. It was adrenaline leaving my body after I refused to be pulled into her storm. She ran to her parents next, expecting them to pressure me. Dexton called, voice heavy with false authority. "We are not going to let you destroy our daughter." I said, "I'm not destroying anyone. I'm separating legally." Marley got on the line and said, "A real husband would protect his wife." I said, "A real wife doesn't demand to be shared and then mock her husband for having boundaries." There was a pause, just long enough for me to know they heard it. Then Dexton said, cold, "She deserves better." I said, "Then she should go get it without my money." That ended the conversation. The isolation hit me hard after that. When you finally stop being used, the people who benefited from you often turn cold. Friends who used to invite us over stopped calling. Couples we knew chose neutrality, which is just cowardice dressed up politely. I'd sit alone some weekends and feel the weight of how easy it is for people to watch you bleed quietly while they protect their comfort. I learned that loyalty is rare. I learned that love without respect is a trap. I learned that being a good man does not guarantee being treated well. Still, I kept moving. I kept my routines. I kept my records. I kept my mouth shut in public. I refused to broadcast my pain because I refused to let Zaylani turn my grief into her entertainment. I worked, went home, cleaned my own house, cooked my own meals, slept on my own side of the bed, and forced myself to face the quiet instead of filling it with noise. Some nights, I'd sit in the dark and feel tears burn my eyes. I didn't fight them. I let them come, then let them pass. The legal process was slow enough to test my patience, but not slow enough to save Zaylani from reality. When attorneys got involved, Zaylani expected negotiation through emotion. She expected guilt. She expected me to soften and be fair in the way people mean when they want more than they earned. But the numbers were the numbers. The records were the records. And her own messages, her own arrogance, did not help her. The system didn't need to punish her dramatically. It only needed to stop subsidizing her. Kavion officially disappeared when the money pressure became unavoidable. Zaylani tried to frame it as choosing peace, but it wasn't peace. It was abandonment. The man she used to make me feel small left the moment she stopped being convenient. There was no closed conversation, no romance, just silence. The same silence she had forced on me when she walked out of our home like I didn't matter. Watching her taste that kind of emptiness didn't make me happy. It made me feel something colder, satisfaction that the universe had balanced something without needing my hands. Zaylani still didn't show remorse. Even when she was alone, even when she was stressed, even when she was facing consequences, she kept the same posture, blame outward, entitlement intact. She texted Brynja. Brynja texted me. "You're doing too much. You're making her suffer." I stared at the screen and thought about how nobody had cared about my suffering. Nobody had told Zaylani to stop. Nobody had told Brynja to stop laughing at my pain. I didn't respond. Silence is a boundary, too. The final blow came in a way Zaylani couldn't post her way out of. The rental company in Addison didn't care about her captions. They cared about payments. When she fell behind, they moved the way businesses move, cold, efficient. Notices, deadlines, consequences. Zaylani started making frantic calls to anyone who might rescue her. Friends avoided her. Her parents offered limited help because they didn't want her chaos spilling into their finances. She discovered what I had discovered months earlier. When your value to people is tied to comfort, your support disappears when you become uncomfortable. I didn't celebrate. I didn't pop champagne. I didn't tell my mutual friends. I did something quieter and more ruthless. I kept building my life while hers collapsed, and I did it without needing her to witness it. I requested a transfer to a role that came with more responsibility and higher pay. I sat in meetings with calm focus. I delivered clean results. My supervisor noticed. When the promotion came, it wasn't a trophy I displayed. It was a door that opened into a life where my peace was not constantly under threat. One night, months after the ultimatum, I came home and realized the house felt different. Not because it changed, but because I changed. The silence didn't feel like abandonment anymore. It felt like space. The kitchen didn't feel like the scene of humiliation anymore. It felt like mine. I cooked dinner and ate at the table without scrolling through old photos. I washed dishes and didn't feel the old ache in my chest. I sat on the couch and realized I hadn't checked my phone for an hour. That's when I understood healing isn't always a dramatic breakthrough. Sometimes it's the first time you forget to bleed. Zaylani called me one last time from a blocked number. I knew it was her the moment I heard her inhale. Her voice had changed, less arrogant, but still sharp. "So you're really going to do this?" she said like I was the villain. I said, "It's already done." She said, "You're cold." I said, "No, I'm clear." She tried to bait me into a fight. She tried to pull me back into the emotional chaos where she felt powerful. I didn't give it to her. I said, "Email your attorney," and ended the call. After that, I blocked every route she used to reach me. Numbers, emails, social media. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it to protect myself. Because the truth is, Zaylani could not touch me legally the way she wanted, so she tried to touch me emotionally. She tried to keep me reactive. She tried to keep me available as a target. When you remove access, cruel people panic because control is the only language they speak. I watched the attempts fade, then disappear. The quiet afterward was the most satisfying sound I've ever heard. I sold the house in Frisco quietly. Not out of fear, out of closure. I didn't want my healing anchored to the place where she had laughed at me. I moved to Grapevine into a smaller place that felt clean and honest. I bought furniture I liked. I chose neutral colors. I kept the space minimal on purpose. I wanted my home to feel like a reset, not a museum of what I lost. Some people would call that running. I call it choosing. For the first time in a long time, I built a life based on my values, not someone else's appetite. The most ruthless part of my comeback wasn't money or paperwork. It was that I stopped needing Zelani to understand what she did. People like her rarely understand. They just resent. They do not regret hurting you. They regret losing access to you. Zelani didn't miss my love. She missed my stability. She missed the way I held the ground steady while she danced on it. When the ground disappeared, she blamed me. That was her character, and I finally stopped trying to negotiate with it. Over time, pieces of the truth reached me through the cracks of our shared world. Zelani moved again, to a smaller place, a cheaper area. She changed her online tone from confident to bitter. Brynja stopped posting so boldly. Dexton and Marley stopped calling. Not because they respected me, but because they realized there was nothing left to pressure. Kavion's name stopped appearing entirely. He was gone like a man closing a tab. Zelani had demanded to be free, and she got it in the most brutal way. Alone, responsible, unrescued. My transformation stayed private the way I needed it to. I didn't join any public movement. I didn't announce lessons. I didn't give speeches. I didn't chase new attention to cover old pain. I simply became the kind of man who cannot be manipulated by shame. I learned to sit with discomfort without surrendering my dignity to make it stop. I learned to say no without explaining it in circles. I learned that love without respect is not love. It is a transaction where you keep paying and keep losing. The day I finalized everything legally, I didn't feel joy. I felt relieved. I walked out of the building and sat in my car, staring at the steering wheel, letting the reality settle in. The marriage was officially over. The person I thought I'd spend my life with had chosen cruelty and entitlement over commitment. And I had survived it without becoming reckless, without becoming violent, without becoming the monster she tried to paint me as. That mattered to me, because I wanted to win without losing myself. I wanted to be whole, not just right. Some evenings I still feel echoes. You don't erase betrayal like deleting a file. It leaves a scar. But scars are proof something healed, not proof something is still bleeding. When I think back to the kitchen, to the speakerphone laughter, to the way my hands shook, I don't feel the same humiliation. I feel gratitude for the clarity it gave me. Because if she had been kinder, I might have stayed longer. If she had apologized, I might have negotiated my own dignity down into crumbs. Her lack of remorse forced me to stop hoping. And that saved me. I ran into Zelani once, accidentally, at a grocery store in Carrollton. It was quick. One aisle, one moment, two lives passing each other. She looked at me like she expected something. Anger, pain, longing, punishment. I gave her nothing. I nodded once, polite, and kept moving. I didn't do it to hurt her. I did it because she no longer had a place in my nervous system. Her face didn't spike my adrenaline. Her presence didn't reroute my day. That is what freedom actually looks like. Quiet, internal, complete. Later that night, Brynja sent a message from a new account. You think you're better than her now. I stared at it and felt nothing but distance. I didn't respond. Because the most ruthless thing you can do to people who thrive on reaction is deny them the feeling that they still matter. I wasn't better than Zelani. I was simply no longer available to be harmed by her. There's a difference. One is ego. The other is survival. Sometimes I replay the ultimatum in my mind. Not the words, but the posture behind them. The belief that I would beg. The belief that I would sacrifice my self-respect to keep a person who didn't respect me. The belief that love is proven through surrender. I understand now that my refusal wasn't stubbornness. It was self-respect arriving late, but arriving strong. I didn't beg because Begging doesn't change someone's character. It only teaches them how much they can demand next time. If someone reads this and thinks the comeback was too cold, I get it. Pain makes people want big justice, dramatic scenes, public humiliation, some loud moment where the world recognizes what was done to you. But real life rarely gives you that. Real life gives you a choice. Keep bleeding publicly or heal privately. I chose private healing because it lasts. I chose structure, boundaries, and quiet strategy because I refuse to let Zeilani turn me into a man who reacts instead of a man who builds. Zeilani wanted to be shared so she could feel powerful and desired without accountability. What she got was something she never predicted: being alone with herself. No stable partner to blame. No steady man to cushion the fall. No husband to shame into paying for her freedom. She never apologized because she never believed she was wrong. Even at the end, she believed she was owed. That's the tragedy of people like her. They can burn a whole life down and still feel entitled to warmth from the ashes. She wanted me to beg. She wanted me to collapse. She wanted me to accept humiliation as the price of not being alone. I didn't. I planned. I protected myself legally, financially, emotionally. I rebuilt quietly in Grapevine, took my promotion, strengthened my routines, and let peace become my normal again. And the karma wasn't a spectacle. It was a consequence, the kind that arrives when a person finally meets a world that refuses to cushion them. My life didn't become perfect. It became mine. And that is the most ruthless ending I could have chosen. If this ending hit you the way it hit me, don't leave yet. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the next story is even nastier. The betrayal is louder, but the karma is faster. And tell me in the comments, what was the most disrespectful line? The ultimatum, the speakerphone laughter, or are you going to fund this whether you like it or not? The end.